what else lies ahead for Billy? Are you going to tour all over? Or?
Well, you know, with a band our size,
Mm,
it's fiscally impossible to tour. You know, touring is okay if you got a four-piece band of 22-year-old guys, and you know they're willing to drive in a van together and sleep in the same hotel room together. But you know, the guys in my band are all professionals, so each guy has to have his own room. You know, it's very expensive, and I I'm not a big enough name that I can command the kind of fees that would pay for a band that size. So I don't do.
there's a lot of R&B and jazz clubs out here. I'm pretty sure they'd love to have you, especially in Seattle.
Yeah, we played when the record was hot. When At This
Uh,
Moment was hot. Yeah, we played Seattle, played Vancouver up there,
yeah.
Portland. I think we
I
played.
mean, it's got the clubs have gotten bigger. There's more clubs. I'm just saying. I know there's probably a handful that just want to grab you.
I'm sure they'd love to have us, and I'm sure we do a great job. The problem is I'd lose money. You
Yeah.
know, I just not only wouldn't make money, I would lose money by the time I paid everybody.
Mm,
You know, I'm stuck playing within driving business of driving distance of LA.
yeah.
What we got to do. But,
No tour bus, right?
no, I don't think so. Sadly,
Yeah.
even when the record was hot, you know, people don't understand that even with a number one record, you know, you're what you're offered is an opening slot for a
Mm,
big star,
yeah.
and for lousy money. So it was rare, even with a number one record, that we made enough money to break even.
Mm,
So there was that, you know, after if we'd had you know, two more top 10 records in a row,
mm,
then our price would have gone up, and then we would have been able to, you know, the country would have been able to see how great a band the Beatles were.
yeah.
And I, I, I it may sound like I'm bragging, but I think that the Beatles were one of the best bands around. You
Yeah.
know?
That's why I was kind of sad that I missed it because I was too young to hit the clubs.
Yeah,
I was underage. I would have loved to come see the Beaters.
yeah, you would have loved it. I think you would have loved it.
Yeah, my brother was just a little kid, so he couldn't definitely come in the club.
You know, most clubs, if they serve food,
Yeah.
uh, that you know an adult can bring you in,
Hmm.
but you got to find an adult willing to do that.
Yeah. But,
Too late now.
yeah. Did you want to ask another question, David?
You were going to ask about. I really got the feeling. I think you
Yeah.
wanted to ask about that, didn't you?
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that song?
Well, in the '70s, you know, after having some hits in the '60s with Judy Clay, and I had a solo hit as well. You know, the culture changed, the music changed, and I couldn't figure out how to fit in with things as they were, and so I was sort of reduced to working what I call survival gigs, and one such gig was at a Ramada Inn where you play 2 weeks, you know, 5, 6 nights a week, out in New Jersey of all places.
Mm,
Nothing wrong with New Jersey, but and what happens in a gig like that is you get a crowd on the weekends, but during the week you're playing to like 3 or 4 businessmen who hate you because the waitresses are talking to you instead of them. So this one Tuesday night, the waitress comes over to me at the end of the set, and she says, "That fellow over there with his wife would like a word with you." So I go over to him, and he stands up. He says, "I'm L. Russell Brown. I wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree." I said, "Oh, thank you. That's nice. Very nice for you." He says, "You know, Vera," he says, "you're one of the great singers. You know, you're a great songwriter. Everybody in the business knows how great you are." He said, but you never make any money."
mm,
he says, "Me, I make a lot of money and nobody respects me." He said, I was thinking as I was listening to you up there, I said, maybe if you and I wrote together, I might be able to teach you how to make money writing songs, and you might be able to teach me how to get respect. I said, boy, that sounds like a good idea to me. And so I started going over to his house, you know, in the afternoons. And he was a very energetic guy, you know. And so we wrote a lot of songs, not all good, but we wrote a lot of songs. Well, one day, like everybody that does one thing well, he wanted to try his hand at producing. And he got a gig producing Nancy Sinatra, who hadn't had a hit in a few years. But she had a name. She was Nancy Sinatra. And so he said, listen, I'm recording Nancy next week and I need one more song for her. He said, I got to go pick up my wife at the beauty parlor. He said, start something. See if you can start something for her while I'm gone and we'll finish it when I get back. Okay. So I said, what the hell do you write for Nancy Sinatra?
Yeah.
You know, and I said, oh, she has this famous father. So I had lines in there like, I love my daddy, but it really don't matter what my daddy might say, meaning, you know. And so by the time he got back to the house, I had finished the song. And I played it for him and he loved it. He just loved the song. He said, oh my God. He said, Billy, this is a #1 song if I ever heard one. And Larry had really good ears for what was going to be a hit, you know. So if he said something like that, I listened to him. He said, so he plays it for Nancy and she hated it. She didn't like the song.
Mm.
So he said, he called me, he said, Billy, you got to do something with this song. He said, I'm telling you, this song is too good to waste. So that got me enthusiastic about it, you know. And I had a friend, piano player named Crazy Joe Renda, and he had a little country band up in Connecticut. And he had a girl singer, and she had a good voice. So we recorded her singing the song, but she was lazy and she didn't really learn it properly. And everywhere we went with the record, the tape, they'd listen to it and they say, boy, great song, but I hate that girl. Love the song, hate the girl. You know, I got that everywhere. Finally, I'm at the last guy on my list, the very last guy. He says, love the song, hate the girl, but we're recording Dolly Parton next week. Give me the song for Dolly. Well, I didn't trust this guy. That's why he was the last guy on my list.
Mm.
I said, Charlie, I tell you what, put it in writing and give me some money. I figured he'd give me a couple of $100, you know.
Mm.
Gives me a check for $2,500, which was a fortune in 1978. You know, I mean, that's like $7,000 today, you know. So I said, I guess he's serious. You know, I guess he means it. So he records it with Dolly. And the record comes out, the album comes out, and he had promised me it would be the single and put it in writing. So in the interim, I get this offer to come to California and write songs for Warner Brothers. And I figured I had done my time in New York and it was time to move somewhere else and take a chance somewhere else. So I'm driving out to California with everything I owned in my car. And every 20 minutes on the country stations, I was taking the southern route, you know, Route 10.
Mm.
And every 20 minutes, they're playing my song, my Dolly Parton song.
Wow.
My God, I'm back in show business again, you know. and the day I hit LA, it hit #1 on the country charts. And I said, wow, this is an omen. I'm gonna do well out here, you know. And of course, I got to meet Dolly, and she was maybe the nicest person I ever met in show business. She's just a genuine, down-home girl, you know. I just was thrilled that you can imagine. I mean, not having a hit for 9 years, and then suddenly you're making a comeback. It was just, I was so grateful. I was so happy, you know. So thank you, Nancy Sinatra, for turning down my song.
Do you think if you had hit Nashville for a little bit, you could have got more hits if you would have wrote like At This Moment for somebody?
I don't know. You know, after I did At This Moment, there was a singer. What was his name? Neil somebody, who was a popular country singer. He did a version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was that kind of song that fit in different formats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember we did I did. My band didn't do it. We did a tribute to James Brown, and all of us had to sing a song, a James Brown song, with James Brown's band. It was me, Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin, Robert Palmer, Joe Cocker, and me. And each of us had to sing a James Brown song with his band. And we had to go to Detroit because Aretha was afraid to fly.
Yeah.
She lived in Detroit. So I get there, we had the rehearsal in the afternoon. It was for cable TV. And Aretha's sister, Irma Franklin, who was the original singer on Piece of My Heart that Janis Joplin later recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So Irma comes over to me, we start talking, and she said, "Oh man, Billy," you know, she knew me from back in the Judy Clay days, you know. Mm-hmm. And she said, your record is so just going crazy up here in Detroit. She said, it's on the pop stations, it's on the rhythm and blues stations, it's on the country stations. It's just one of those rare songs that crosses over to every single market, every age group. I mean, when that record was out, man, we had 65-year-old couples loving that song. We had junior high school kids making it their prom song. I mean, it was just remarkable how broad the audience for At This Moment was. It's rare, you know, because today everything is so narrow. You know, you have stations that are dedicated to one singer. You know?
Yeah.
I'm serious, you know. So anyway, so when we did that, you know, I got to meet Aretha for the first time, who was a hero of mine as well. Irma said, Aretha wants to meet you. So we go over, she was sitting in a booth with a couple of people. And the first thing Aretha says to me, she says, well, if it isn't Mr. Storybook Children. Storybook Children was the song I made with Judy Clay back in 1968. I said, wow, you remember that song? She said, yeah, baby. She said, that was one of my favorites. She said, that was huge in Detroit. I said, wow. You know, when you idolize somebody like an Aretha Franklin or a Fats Domino for that matter, you never think that they would have any idea who you are. Because you put them up on this pedestal, and if they even know your name, you know, much less what you do, it's like hard to believe, you know, for a minute there, and it's also thrilling.
Yeah.
Too. You know that Wiltern Theater show I told you about?
Mm-hmm.
About 25 years after that show, this woman friends me on Facebook, and she tells me that she produced that show.
Oh, wow.
And she said, you know, you went over so great that night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we filmed your performance. I said, really? I said, wow, cool. She said, yeah, I'll send you a copy of it. And then she proceeded to tell me, she said, you know, I used to be one of Frank Sinatra's girlfriends.
What?
He'd come over to my house and see me. And says, one night he comes over to see me, and I played him that tape of you singing At This Moment. And he listened, and he said, play it again. Played it for him again. He said, play it again. Third time. He said, my God. He said, who is this kid? How come he's not the biggest star in the world? Frank Sinatra, my God, saying this about little old me.
Yeah.
And she said every time he came to see her, he would demand that she play him that tape. I said,
I'm surprised that he didn't ask you to come join his duet CD.
Oh my God, yeah.
It would have been awesome to hear Billy and Sinatra sing together.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, when my mother was singing, you know, and my mother had good taste,
Mm,
and she'd bring home great albums of the kind of music that she liked, you know, Sinatra's songs for young lovers, songs for swinging lovers, you know. I listened to those as much as I listened to the rock and roll stuff of my generation.
mm,
Nancy Wilson was a big favorite of hers. Nat King Cole. You know, she had really hip ears, as we used to say. So yeah, before that, years before that, I had met Sinatra's best friend, Jilly Rizzo was his name. He had a club in New York called Jilly's, and Jilly was a tough, you know, New York tough guy, you know, and he came. Actually, he came to the recording session when I did my first solo hit with Pen in Hand, and he was friends with my manager at the time, and he said this kid, he said he's the only guy I heard that phrases almost as good as Frank, you know? And he said, and and, and so you know I got to know Jilly pretty good.
mm,
And then in later years, you know, 20 years later, when At This Moment was hot, we had a gig in Palm Springs where Frank had lived and where Jilly lived,
mm.
near Frank. So I'm playing this real big club there. And there's a knock on the dressing room door. And there was this huge guy, you know, crooked nose, you know, it looked like a real mafia guy.
Mm.
And he's got an armful of like 24 roses for me. He said, "Hey, he said, Jilly sent these here for you. He said he wants you to have these. He said he says he still loves you, but he's homesick in bed and he can't come and see you.
Mm.
He said to tell you, be sure to tell you that still Frank's the only one that can outphrase you." You know? It's like, wow, you know, I mean, why couldn't I have met the great Sinatra, man? You know, and maybe he would have said something nice to me, you know, himself.
Which he would probably say, write me a song like that, like At This Moment, probably.
You know, the thing that surprised me that he liked the song
Mm,
because he was a stickler for good grammar.
mm,
And there's that one line in there where I say, "You don't love me no more."
mm,
Terrible grammar,
mm.
but it wouldn't have worked if I had said, "Because you don't love me anymore."
Yeah.
It just would have sounded stupid. You know, so sometimes you have to use bad grammar in a song to make it work. And but apparently he liked the song in spite of that.
Yeah.
You know, who knows?
Yeah.
And then of course we got to do Carson, as you mentioned before. We
Yeah.
did Johnny Carson 9 times.
Wow, 9 times.
9 times. And
There's only like 3 or 4 shows on YouTube, so I was like, oh, it was only on a couple times. Were you ever with Judy on Sullivan?
sad to say, no.
No.
Uh, you know, there was the racial factor. I
Mhm.
think, and even though that was the hippie days when everybody was peace and love and all that, but we were of a different generation. You know, we didn't wear the bell-bottom trousers and the
Mhm.
fringe and the hippie stuff. You know, Judy wore gowns like the old-fashioned gown. I wore, you know, a mohair suit. You know, sometimes with a tie, and so we were sort of on the edge of the past. Uh, and things were changing rather rapidly. And I don't think that Sullivan was ready yet for a racially mixed duo singing love songs.
Mm.
I think Ed would have done it, but I don't
Yeah.
think the network was ready.
Network probably.
Yeah, because eventually, you know, Tina Turner and Sammy Davis Jr. sang one of our songs as
Mhm.
a duet on television. Excuse me. And even when I had a hit with Pen in Hand, they didn't ask me to be on there. And And a year later, or 2 years later, Vicky Carr recorded the same song, and she got to be on Ed Sullivan. And so that kind of hurt, you know.
Yeah. That was a top show at the time for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a legendary show, yeah.
It was it, man. Yeah, to be on Sullivan. You know,
Like before Carson was Sullivan.
Carson wasn't bad,
Yeah.
and in fact, you know, I later became friends with one of the guys that wrote Carson's monologues,
Mm-hmm.
the opening monologues,
Mm-hmm.
and also some of the crew guys. I got to know them, and they all told me, they said, you were Johnny's second favorite singer after Tony Bennett. He said he loved you. In fact, when they had their 30th anniversary of the show, we were hired to play at the anniversary party for the Tonight Show. So, you know, that's nice, you know, nice to.
Well, watching the video, I think the first sign that he really loved you is that he got you over to the couch. Barely anybody gets to the couch unless he really likes you. And
He didn't like singers.
Huh?
My agent's father managed Doc Severinsen for 20 years. So he was part of the family over there at the Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, you know, the first time I didn't do couch. But the second time, Danny, my agent, said, he said, you know, you're going to do couch tonight. He said, this is really a big deal. He said, because Johnny thinks that singers are mostly idiots that can't talk.
No.
So
But I think you fooled him, though.
Singers on the couch.
Yeah, you fooled him. He was asking about, like, I heard that you started the band to pick up girls, and then you said yeah, and then you started talking to Victoria Prince. I think Victoria Principal was sitting right next to you. You started flirting with her.
Right. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go out with her. I was too shy to ask her out. You know, I was okay flirting with her on camera, but off camera, I was too shy. That's been the story of my life. You know, because I think it's because I was a singer, and you know, when you come off stage, girls talk to you.
Yeah.
And so I never learned the skills that a normal guy would have to learn. You know, like I can't go to the supermarket and say, "Hey, you buying Scott tissue or Kleenex there?" You know, I mean, I couldn't do that in a straight face. You know, where a normal guy learns how to do that. You know, hey, you want tomatoes there, or you want red peppers or yellow peppers? You know, I mean, I would feel like an idiot doing that. You know, so I don't think I ever went out with a girl that didn't talk to me first, or I wasn't introduced to properly my whole life. You know, and how many girls did I miss? You know, because I was too terrified to make the first move that might have gone out with me. You know, oh, what the heck?
Well, who knows? Maybe you could have got Kim Basinger too, since she was a chitter chatter. She was probably really into you.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, looking back on it, I think she was, because one time she came backstage, and she whispers in my ear, and she says, you know, everybody thinks that we're sleeping together, and I'm like, whoa, how do I answer that? You know, this is Kim Basinger, a goddess that walks the face of the earth, and how do I answer something like that? And
only you had seen Batman before.
Yeah, dude.
Batman,
you know,
before that.
You should have said, "Let's make the rumors true."
yeah. If only I were that cool, you know. And another one was Michelle Pfeiffer. You know, Jeff Goldblum from Buckaroo Banzai. We were pretty friendly on this set. So he was making his next movie was with her. So he comes to the club one night with her, and he said he came backstage and he says, you know, Michelle wants to meet you. That's right. And that's how I got her to come to the show. Really? Wow. and so he brings her backstage, you know, beautiful Michelle Pfeiffer, and I'm like, I'm like
Yeah.
Jackie Gleason, you know, I was, you know, making an utter fool of myself, but of course that went nowhere. And you know, that's not to say that I didn't get lucky with a couple of big names who I won't mention, but yeah, but generally it was like if it was up to me to make the first one, I always said if I wasn't a singer, I'd probably still be a virgin.
No.
You know?
Yeah, you're saying, but I was gonna say you brought up Jeff Goldblum, and I don't know if you saw that. Sometimes in his off time of not doing movies, he's been touring and doing jazz stuff too. Like maybe that you could, maybe if he was at a city that was, or you were, you know, you guys could like link up and maybe you could be part of one of his shows or something.
I went to see one of his shows here in town,
Oh, good.
and I spoke with him, and you know, was, you know, like got to know each other. Yeah, he was good. He was really good. His what he does on stage is excellent. You know, another one that's really good is Pesci. I mean, Pesci sings his ass off.
Yeah.
He is really a good singer. He doesn't like to go out and do it in front of people much, but
Yeah.
he's really good.
You guys have a favorite in common, right? Just recently passed
That was him, Jimmy Scott.
Jimmy Scott.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, and you know, Pesci sounds a lot like Jimmy Scott. He and Frankie Valli grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and Jimmy lived in Newark for many years, and he used to play all these, you know, terrible low-end black clubs. And Frankie and Pesci, they said when they were kids, they'd go see him, and of course, you know, Pesci got his whole singing style from Jimmy Scott, and Frankie, you know, got a little of his singing style from Jimmy too. He told me that. But I got to know Jimmy really well. We were very close, and he was just a sweetheart. He was old school show business, you know. I mean, he was one of these guys that sort of saw it like a lot of the old timers. He saw it as his duty, his obligation to help young singers learn the ropes of how to perform, how to, you know, something as simple as how to enter a stage, how to exit a stage, you know, things you never think of, you know, how to behave yourself with regard to other performers. You know, you don't do somebody's song when they're on the same show as you. You know, just simple stuff that a lot of young people don't think of, young performers don't think of. And he was great like that. He was just a wonderful little guy.
Yeah. There's a video that David showed me on YouTube where Joe was singing with Jimmy as a duet, I think on one of his final albums. And Joe was just sitting there and he was just getting so astonished. I don't think he could even sing the duet. He was just like in tears, just like so emotional just hearing Jimmy sing.
Oh yeah,
It was effortless for Jimmy. Jimmy was just singing like nothing. It's like one of those voices that's just effortless.
Yeah, Jimmy was great like that, and of course, you know, unfortunately, Jimmy was an acquired taste. You know, everybody didn't get him. He was too hip. You know, he was just too hip, and of course, Pesci just worshipped him. And I love Jimmy too. You know, I was turned on to him as a very young fellow. You know, my dream was toward the end of his life I wanted to produce him, you know, but the record company, they wanted somebody else that was more connected to the company to do him. But I felt I could have made a great record with Jimmy, you know, picking the right songs for him. You know, it's all casting.
Yeah.
You know, like you're casting a movie. You pick the right musicians for that job. You know, there's great over here and there's great over here. You don't hire George Benson if you want B.B. King. Two great guitar players, right? but George does his thing, BB does his thing, and you don't hire George and try to ask him to play like BB, and vice versa. So it's all in the casting. You don't hire Rosie O'Donnell for the Michelle Pfeiffer role.
Yeah.
And that's a simple thing that most people that produce records don't really understand. Most lousy producers don't understand.
Yeah.
You got to pick the song that fits the singer's range, the kind of subject matter that they excel at. You don't hire a Jimmy Scott and ask him to sing political songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So
Cool. Well, it's been a great pleasure for you to be on our show, Billy.
well, thank you for having
We'd
me.
love to have you on again.
Yeah, anytime.
Tell us some more stories about movies and music.
Yeah, you got my email. Just let me know.
All right.
All right.
Well, this has been Patrick and David with the one and only Billy Vera on the Mad Bros Media Zoom show and podcast. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sugar, you might soon